Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread throughout the whole countryside. He taught in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. And he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, the recovery of sight for the blind, and to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." He then rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him, and he began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't this Joseph's son?" they asked. Jesus said to them, "Surely you will quote this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself.' Do here in your hometown what we have heard you did in Capernaum. I tell you the truth," he continued, "no prophet is accepted in his hometown. I assure you that there were many widows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut up for 3.5 years, and there was a severe famine throughout the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but to the widow of Zarephath in the region of Sidon. And there were many in Israel with leprosy at the time of Elisha the prophet, yet not one of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian." All the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the town, and took him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, in order to throw him over the cliff. But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. This is the beginning of Jesus' ministry, really. This is where he has now been anointed by the Spirit. He's left the wilderness. He's obviously begun to do some stuff in Capernaum on his way. News about him is spreading everywhere. People love him. And now he goes home to his own town. And it all started so well. It was all going so well. But then it kind of turns a little nasty. It's a bit like one of those holidays. You know, when you arrive, you unpack and you look and your view is amazing. The room is fantastic, everything you expect. You're looking forward to 2 weeks in the sun, and then at 7 o'clock on Monday morning, the builders arrive and start digging up the pavement underneath your window. It all started so well, but now is kind of disintegrated into chaos. This account of his trip to Nazareth makes me feel a bit like that. It started so well, but then went so horribly wrong. They loved what he had to say. They were amazed at the graciousness of his words. But in the end, they want to throw him over the cliff. What I want to look with you this evening is why that happened. What was going on that caused them to admire him so much and then want to kill him? Not like some of you, I know, when you think I'm talking a load of rot, you just kind of cross your hands and arms like this, and you kind of drift off and think about what you're going to do tomorrow morning and think, oh, what is he chuntering on about now? Or some of you pretend to be taking notes on your iPads and you're actually surfing the internet, shopping on Amazon or something. Whereas this is kind of they're not kind of slightly ambivalent about it. They are furious. They want to kill him. I think actually, if any of you feel that way about me, you should tell somebody else and get some help before you get that too far, okay? Because that's no way to treat a vicar. Jesus turns up in the synagogue. He is handed the scroll of Isaiah. He opens it up. This, I think, I can fairly say, would have been one of their favourite books. This is what they longed to hear and longed to see. The things that Isaiah tells them will happen is the thing that they are hoping so desperately that will happen. Things are not right, they know that. And things need to be made better. And God is going to do it for them. And Isaiah tells them that God will do it for them. They're in a mess. God is supposed to be their king, yet the Romans rule. And Caesar has power, not seemingly God. And this speaks about that being put right. And they longed for that day. So can you imagine the excitement when this new speaker, one of their own, born in their own town, is beginning to do good stuff. They've heard some rumours about him. He's been in the wilderness and goodness only knows what happened in there. But now he's come to Capernaum and sick of being healed, and he says great things. And now he's in our synagogue. And better than that, they've handed him Isaiah. This doesn't get any better. This is going to be good. Local lad turned good, yet it all turns out so differently. This, I think, is the turning point. What I'm going to suggest is they misunderstood, or they didn't understand in the same way, of who was who in the Bible account they were hearing in this prophecy. Often we encourage people when you read the scriptures to ask yourself the question, who am I in this passage? And by the way, if you're reading the Gospels and you start thinking, well, I must be Jesus. No, try again. Have another go. You're not him. You're probably one of the others. And what I'm going to suggest is they had a different opinion on who was who in this prophecy. And this is the turning point. When Jesus says, prophets are not accepted in their own town. And I think he broadens that out. He intends that to be broadened out. Is God sends people to you, my people, and you don't listen. He will say it again as he enters Jerusalem, as he weeps over Jerusalem. We have sent so many to draw you back, yet you don't listen. Remember, we looked at this at length before Christmas. Of how the Hebrew prophets worked. And what the Hebrew prophets were doing is they're calling the people back to the covenant. Remember who you are. Remember who God is. And as a result of that, this is how you should live. Remember David. Remember the promise that God made to David. There will always be someone of your line on the throne. And calls them back to remember that. And therefore you live like this. And Jesus says, they have come and you didn't listen. And then he really rubs salt in the wound. This is when it really gets a little bit kind of, well, very uncomfortable. Actually, this is the bit I think that makes them angry. And it may be missed by us as Gentiles unless we understand who Jesus is talking about. What he does is he reminds them of two of their great prophets, Elijah and Elisha, both of whom God sent to call the people back into the covenant. Yet look who they help. There's a widow of Zarephath, or wherever it is. How you pronounce that. Where I come from, that's how you pronounce that. She's a Gentile. That's like saying that God is blessing the people of North Finchley, but not the people of Golders Green. I know that can't happen. That's a ridiculous thing to say, I know. But it's like feeling like the blessing is going somewhere else. It's like imagining that God loves another church as much as he loves this church. I mean, what an outrageous thing to think or even to say. And then just to add to it, he says, don't forget about Elisha. There were plenty with leprosy, yet Naaman the Syrian, Naaman the Gentile, Naaman the commander of the army was the one who was healed. God sent those prophets to you, you did not listen, and now the Gentiles are reaping the benefit. This is the point where they get angry. This is the bit where they go, enough is enough. This man needs to go, and he needs to go over the cliff. I'm going to suggest they've got the wrong idea of who is who in this account. Who are the blind? Who are the deaf? Who are the oppressed? I'm going to suggest that Jesus' listeners thought they were. They are the ones who are oppressed. They are the ones who are held prisoner. What I think he's saying is, no, you know God. Therefore, that knowledge means you have sight. It means you can hear. It means that you no longer need to be oppressed. What we're going to do, he says, is look for those who don't know God, who are blind, therefore cannot hear, and therefore are so often oppressed. They thought they were the victims. In actual fact, he says, no, you are the messengers of the good news. And they didn't like it. They like to wallow, I guess, on the floor like so many of us do. Oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm the one getting beaten up here. When is God going to come and rescue me from this terrible situation? We love a little wallow, and a little wallow's no bad thing, but just do it privately. Do it in your own room. Don't embarrass yourself in public with it. Because perhaps you are not the victim. Perhaps you are not the oppressed. Perhaps you are not the blind and not the deaf. We are here to announce the year of the Lord's favour. I think the irony of this bit is just brilliant. Do you remember when Jesus was in the wilderness and the devil said to him, throw yourself off a high place? The angels will catch you because he won't let you even stub your toe. And he puts the devil right. Now these people take him to a high place with the full intention of throwing him over the cliff. It seems as if this Jesus attracts kind of people who want to throw him off high places. But of course, that's not going to happen. I was talking to somebody this morning who we were talking about when this person actually could be in a place where it could be quite difficult. And I suggested that actually Jesus decided when his death would come. He decided when martyrdom was his, nobody else. When Paul, I think, speaks to the church in Rome, and he says to them, look, pay your taxes, honour those in authority. This is a time of high persecution for the church. I think what he's saying to them is, don't be an unnecessary martyr. There'll be enough martyrs around, just don't go rushing for it. Jesus chooses his time, and it wasn't going to be over a cliff, and it wasn't going to be in Nazareth. This warning of who are the victims and who is the message for, I think reverberates down through the generations, and it comes to us. We have good news. We have good news to share. This is not about us. This is about out. If we meet with God in this place, that is so that we can share God in that other place. The church's default mode, of course, is maintenance. Let's just keep ticking along. Just get enough people in that it looks okay. I mean, from where I'm standing tonight, this looks good. This is enough, isn't it? Is this enough? Will this do us for tonight? We can quite please. There's quite a few of us here. That'd be nice. Of course we can't. As long as there's one person outside who doesn't know who God is, this church isn't full enough. Until all of those who don't know God, this church isn't full enough. But the danger is we get comfortable and we don't want to share what we have. And this is a warning. Jesus is saying to them, actually, the good news is not about those who know God, but those who don't yet know God. The good news is for us, but it is for us to take out to others. Don't look in, don't look out, but actually you're just pretending, and your reflection comes back to you. And in actual fact, what you're doing is looking in. We changed our building so that we could use it for community use. We spent an awful lot, we spent nearly all of our money, nearly £500,000, transforming the inside of this building, taking out pews, bringing in chairs, taking out a very old ancient heating system, bringing in a new heating system, for the intention of being able to reach out. I was so encouraged by so much of what I heard yesterday, that what they're encouraging churches to do, some of which we're undertaking already. But we can't be complacent either. We must always be looking out. If you haven't shared your faith in the last week, Why? I hadn't shared my faith in weeks, and I knew that wasn't good enough, because I need to share the good things that God has done to me and done for me. You do it in your own way. I mean, I'm cheeky and I get away with all kinds of stuff. You won't be able to do that, but you'll have your own way of doing it. Perhaps you'll do it with actions. How far are you prepared to go to share the good news of Jesus? That grisly neighbour, you have every right to be angry with them. They are awful. They park in your part of the thing. They put their wheelie bin in front of your gate and all that kind of really, really bad stuff that neighbours do. Have their music turned up loud or whatever it is. I'm okay. I live in the vicarage, so that's all fine for me. I don't have a problem with that. But how far are you prepared to go for that neighbour? Who are you prepared to forgive for the good news of Jesus? How far will you go with those work colleagues who are deaf and blind to the goodness of God, to see them know God? How far will you go? Jesus says, you're not the victims, you are the victors. You are not blind and you are not deaf. You might well shut your eyes and you might well stick your fingers in your ears, but you do hear if you choose to, and you do see if you choose to. Some, however, are blind and deaf and oppressed, and they need to be set free. And what we have is the good news. The year of the Lord's favour, the time of the Lord has come.